about it, I mean, there's been a lot of terrorist attacks around the world, and we're probably the only country that has the least amount of it. We don't have government coups. We don't have anything of that nature. But I do have that fear that 50 years from now, as our population changes and we start getting more and more of the countries that have the mindset of coups as a majority, maybe someday, 200 years from now, this country might suffer from coups, you know. And I don't mean K-O-O-Z, I mean C-O-U-P-S, you know. But, you know, so sometimes you got to look at it. So I'll tell you what the government did right. It wrote and did a wonderful Declaration of Independence. It wrote and did a wonderful Constitution.
Yes, it did.
So can it do things right? Yeah, it can. It can. Will it do it all the time? No. But let me tell you something. There's enough checks and balances. There's enough checks and balances that we really can't really screw up too many things too much.
Well, right now, you really don't have those checks and balances. When you look at the separation of power in the government, it was separated to keep power from any one person or entity. Well, you know, today you don't have that. You have one entity
but
has
let me
all
tell
the
you
power.
something. And that started with Cheney and Bush. They started putting themselves above the law, the same way as Richard Nixon did.
Well, that's just a political party in and of itself.
Well, but it's individuals in this particular case.
Well, but you have one party that all these people adhere to the rules of this one party.
Well, I think that's the problem that I have with Republicans is they're very conservative, and they don't bend. They don't see black a gray area. They only see black and white, and that's all they see.
Well, what they should see is the rule of law. They should see the Constitution of the states and of the federal government, and they should obey the law, regardless of what party it is. That's what they should do.
I agree with that. Obey the law.
Yeah.
But you know what? There are times, and I don't remember. I mean, look, Richard Nixon was primary proof. Here's a guy. If you listen to his tapes, I mean, my God, this guy was an out-and-out demagogue. This guy thought he was above the law.
Yeah.
I mean, he okayed the Watergate break-in. He okayed the payoff. He was against Kennedy at that time, Ted Kennedy. He was looking for any way to embarrass him, to get any information on him that would make Richard Nixon look good. I mean, Richard Nixon, when you hear those tapes, it's, my God, the guy was just, he was a crook.
He was very arrogant.
He was a crook, he's arrogant. And George Bush is the same way. And you know what? It wasn't George as much as Dick Cheney.
Yeah, but Richard Nixon was smart. He was an intelligent man.
Who?
Richard Nixon.
He was a very bright guy.
Yeah. I can't say that about George.
No. George had, as far as I'm concerned, George, I mean, he couldn't spell cat without spotting him the C and the T. You know?
That's good.
I mean,
that's good.
I mean, he was a real dummy. He was a real dummy. Dick Cheney was a bright guy. And he is a bright guy, but he's a nasty son of a bitch. That's what he is. He's not a nice man. He don't come off as a nice man. He comes off as an arrogant guy that can get. Look, he got away with shooting somebody, for God's sake. I mean, anybody else would have got fined for. I mean, it's not attempted murder, but it's manslaughter. It's attempted manslaughter. It's stupidity. You know, he didn't even go. I mean, he would have never gotten a jail sentence or anything like that. But he should have been fined. He should have been questioned. He should have been booked. Mm-hmm. But he wasn't, because he was vice president of the United States.
Yeah.
You know, and secondly of all, they have his daughter. They put her on. She was like an assistant secretary of state someplace, you know, and they have her in her 40s. She's speaking about national interest and national politics. What the hell does she know? I mean, where's her qualifications that makes us such a know-it-all on these things?
Well, I'll tell you, it's one of the great things about the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution of the U.S. is it's written in such a plain language. You don't have to be a scholar to understand it and to understand the ramifications of not following it. That's one of the great things about that document.
Well, I'll tell you something. And by the way, all of this stuff also occurred with those founding fathers. They all did not agree.
No,
they all were not nice guys either.
Yeah.
There were some pretty shoddy guys. I mean, just the tumultuous problems they had between Aaron Burr and Alexander Hamilton. I mean, they hated each other.
They had a duel.
They had one killed the other too. You know. But and you want to know something? Everybody thinks that Aaron Burr was the bad guy because he killed Hamilton. Hamilton was the one that actually kept exasperating the situation.
Well, Hamilton kept Burr out of the White House.
He kept him out of the White House because Burr was the vice president at the time. He not only kept him out of the White House, he wrote him scathing letters. He wrote letters to newspapers at that time defaming his character. I mean, Thomas Jefferson was not a nice guy.
Well,
I mean, Alexander Hamilton.
Yeah,
he was not a nice guy.
Hamilton was very arrogant.
Very arrogant man. And Burr was supposedly the nice guy. If you look at Burr's history, he was the kind of guy you want in office. But guess what? The turn and history, again, we bullshit history. Excuse the expression. I didn't mean to use that dirty word, bull. But
hey, the Bulls got to do something.
But my point is that history has BS'd us through the years. The same way as religion has BS'd us through the years.
Hey, look at Abraham Lincoln.
Yes, there's another one. Abraham Lincoln. Was he a good president? Yes, for the country, he was a good president. Did he do things that were illegal? Yeah, he did. But guess what? He did it for the good of the country. But you know what? And like you said, I think we made more of him than he is. We made him bigger than he was.
Yeah, I think there was another way of doing it.
Yeah, history made him bigger than he was, because he wasn't in favor of the black man. He was anti-slavery, which means any white or any black could have been included. But the thing is that he wasn't just out there to free the black man. He was out there to unify the country, and he'll do it any best way he could. And even if it meant that he would have to take over, which he did. I mean, let's face it, he almost took command of the army totally, even though he's the commander-in-chief. But he made all the decisions for that Civil War.
He had, if I'm not mistaken, he had senators arrested for disagreeing with him.
That's right.
And you talk about things that Nixon did.
That's right.
And Nixon, they had the break-in, they had the eavesdrop, the wiretap.
John, they're both Republicans. Republicans can do anything they want,
And that goes back. You got to follow the law. Give me the guy that's going to follow the law.
You know what kills me? I watch Fox. Fox is so one-sided conservative, it's unbelievable. Every time I see a show like Hannity or Fox News, it seems they only put people on that agree with them. That's all they do.
Yeah.
They don't give you both sides of the story. They only put people on that agree with them.
But isn't that News Today? News Today, if you flip, especially with cable TV, everything's about their point of view.
Yes.
It's you don't get that. Here's the facts. Only the facts. You decide. You don't get that anywhere.
No. Well, I'll tell you where you do get it, though. Now, I have to say, the big three, ABC, CBS, and NBC, they present both sides. They've always done that. When you have Meet the Press on NBC, very unbiased program.
Yes, I agree.
Very
with that.
unbiased program.
Yeah.
You take, when you watch the news at night, if there's a commentary by Brian Williams on NBC, unbiased. Charlie Gibson, now he's retiring, Charlie Gibson, for ABC, and he's retiring in January, and Diane Sawyer is going to take his place. But I got to tell you something, Charlie Gibson, very fine, unbiased newsman. Katie Couric, she's still on a Today Show as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
But they're going to have Diane Sawyer. Diane Sawyer is a very good news person. She's had she cut her teeth on 2020 and prime time. Mm-hmm. So she knows what it is to interview and to give both sides of a story. And from a humane point of view, she's not a plastic character like some of these people are. But when I watch Hannity, I almost want to puke. I keep saying, don't you want to ever have anybody in your program that can challenge your intellect? Which, by the way, wouldn't take much. A chimp can challenge this guy's intellect.
But a lot of they're not interested in that. If you go to like radio and go through your talk show host, and they don't. If you call in and you don't agree with them, you're going to last about 30 seconds and they hang up on you.
Well, I've done that. I've hung up on people. But when I hang up on them? I hang up on them when they get neurotic and they get crazy. I let them speak their piece, but if they start getting stupid, then I hang up on them. And how do I judge that? I judge that by the way they speak. The fact that they get repetitious, that they say the same thing, that they have no grounds for what they're talking about, they don't have proof on what they're talking about. And sometimes I say, you know what, before I let the public listen to this nonsense, let me get them off the air. And I do that. Now, I have to judge that. Somebody's got to make that judgment. I mean, let's face it. I mean, like, this is your station, all right? This station is owned, operated, and solely taken care of by John Sotolar. And let me tell you something. And anything I say, if you want to sue me, sue John. He's responsible. Anything I say over the airwaves, he's responsible for. That's the guy you talk to, okay? And then he's got a disclaimer. He says, I have no control of my talk show hosts.
That's it.
So it goes back and forth.
It's not me.
It goes back and forth. But you know what? My point, again, is that there are times, let's get back to the government, the times the government does have to step in. And if they didn't step in at times, and I'll give you, for instance, when it comes to time of war, you want to leave it up to the individual states?
No, but that's the purpose of the federal government, though. So, yeah, they most definitely should be there for that.
Yeah. And you know what?
Yeah.
John, that is Big Brother. People say, oh, I don't want Big Brother. But that is Big Brother.
Well, that's the idea of the federal government, that they would be the big brother.
So, I